here with the lovely Miss Karli Wells, and she's a staff member here at the Columbia Urban League, but she's also a phenomenal community leader who led the 2020 Vision Movement. So tell us about the 2020 Vision Movement.
Absolutely. So in 2015, I was a college senior at the University of South Carolina, and we'd really run into some major issues in terms of race relations and just, issues for minority students in general on campus. Starting with, there was the Whiteboard Incident where a young lady unfortunately used the N-word on a list of things she thought were wrong with the university. And we really felt like we had reached a point where we needed to sort of take a stand and advocate for all of the things the university was failing to do on behalf of minority students.
Which is sad, because you would think that we're no longer living in those type of times.
You would think, unfortunately. And we actually just celebrated, the 50th anniversary of the desegregation of the university. And so you think that we were doing a little bit better, and yet you still had minority students really making some of the same complaints that students have been making for the last 50 years, not having a space. And for, specifically LGBT students not being able to have, access to resources that gave them the ability to change their name, and to not have issues with professors, or even, issues for students who are suffering from disabilities. And so the university was just really failing in a lot of areas. And at some point you get tired of asking for the same things over and over again. We sat in forum after forum and said, look, here are the things we need. And every time we got this answer, our hands are really tied. And so after a couple of incidents, race-related, that served as a catalyst, you had a group of students who said, look, we really need to fix this.
And you were one of those group of students?
I was.
You were the leader.
We held our first meeting in my living room. And so you had kids crowded around our living room TV with a whiteboard, and, standing in the kitchen just trying to figure out, okay, well, what are the things we're going to ask for specifically? How do we come across this and make sure that our voices are heard?
So as the leader of the 2020 Vision Movement, tell us how you have kind of embraced that in your daily life as well.
Absolutely. So I graduated from university and then went off to do election work. So I was registering voters in a predominantly African-American and Latino neighborhood in Florida.
Civic participation.
Exactly.
Go ahead on.
And so then after I finished that, I came to work for the Columbia Urban League.
So why the Columbia Urban League?
For a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to work at a place that has a history of protecting people who might not have the resources to speak out for themselves.
So this is personal for you.
It is. It is. And then the other thing is, it's always nice to kind of come back home, right? And if you can't create change and aren't willing to create change in your own community, that makes it so much harder to have an impact nationally or globally. And so those things were important to me. Plus, just the specific mission of the Urban League and the work that we do with our youth, the reach that we're able to have on a daily basis, even from the smallest things to the biggest things, it just makes so much of a difference.
And of course, but it's not just your career. This is not just your job. This is your lifestyle.
It is.
Empowerment and being a community leader, it's an overall lifestyle. I mean, you dedicate your entire life to it.
Do from the work that I do with my sorority, and then just continuing to be involved both with students on campus, and so helping them to sort of carry on the work that we started, even just to volunteering on my own in the community. It's something that you really can't get away from if it's something that you believe in, because that conviction
it's gonna keep chasing you.
Exactly.
And it's gonna get a hold of you. It's gonna follow you.
Right.
And it's gonna bug the heck out of you on top of that.
Yes.
So tell us about the future for the 2020 Vision Movement.
Well, actually, there have been considerable successes. We presented a list of demands to the university of things they needed to change.
So these things are still occurring?
Absolutely. And so just this past December, the first thing we asked for was for the university to recognize the involvement of slaves in building the university, because there was no place on campus where that history was recognized. And so this past December, they erected two sort of plaques that talk about the history and the slaves that we do know were involved in not just the building of the university, but the role that they played on campus. And so that was really an important moment for us to sort of see that first demand get checked off the list. I will also say that we asked for a specific minority space for students to go, because there was no minority student lounge, and now there is one. That was one of the things that they've already fixed. And so these things are continuing to happen, and there are students on campus continuing to advocate for the rest of that list. The significance of the name 2020 Vision was that we wanted these goals to be achieved by the year 2020. And so there are a handful of things on the list that they've really already crossed off. And so just continuing to push the university so that the next generation doesn't have to worry about the things that we did.
So I know that being a community leader is kind of rooted within your blood. Your father.
Yes.
Tell us about kind of your family lineage.
So my father is a Baptist minister, and he's also the Title IX coordinator and assistant director of equal opportunity programming at the university. And so what that means is that if you have a complaint, if you feel like you're being discriminated against, he's the person that you go see. So we were the family that you came to for help. Between him being a minister and my mother being a teacher, there was never a time where there wasn't somebody who needed something from us, and there was never a time where my parents were afraid to give that. And so that lesson of just serving others and learning to put other people before you, really just, it wasn't something that had to be said because it was shown. And so that, I think, has made a tremendous impact on, who I am and the things that I believe in, if only because I watched my parents.